Hello and welcome to Skyport IT's CISSP chats. Today we're going to be talking with our local CISSP, Daniel Marcellus. Dan, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I am Daniel Marcellus, and I am a CISSP, certified security professional, and I want to know who's got your data.
Okay, and now we're going to get into the basics of cybersecurity because I'm sure there's a lot of people unsure about what to do to stay safe. So let's get into some of these questions. So the first question I have is, can you just explain what cybersecurity is and why it's increasingly important in today's digital world?
Well, it's really about cost to your company, your reputation, and the safety of even your clients. If there's a data breach, you can be liable in many different ways, whether it's state or federal regulations that could cost you your company, in fact.
So what are the most common types of cyber threats that individuals and businesses face today?
There's probably a great deal of information out there as far as stats for this type of these types of attacks and things. But what I can give you is what we run into the most is usually in regard to hacked email accounts by typically someone in the C-level in a company who's using a poor password that has been cracked from the outside, usually in Office 365. And what happens is the attackers will sit there and kind of monitor email, looking for that opportune time to interject themselves, usually to change bank account numbers for ACH transfers and such. Those are the things you hear about a lot.
So in light of that, how can someone identify if they've been a victim of a cyber attack?
It's really about you don't know if you haven't been breached, right? So people aren't monitoring to see what's going on, or their IT's not monitoring or checking things that they could check. For example, we have a playbook for 365 that allows you to actually go in and see, is someone logging in from another country? We've seen that. But also think about security to prevent that, such as two-factor authentication.
For more information on that, visit our website, go to our download section, and you can get your Microsoft 365 playbook today. Could you walk us through the basic steps everyone should take to protect their personal information online?
Biggest thing is to stop clicking on things and loading apps without reading the terms and conditions. Perfect example, a user on their phone wanted this app, and they kind of clicked through things, and what they clicked through was that they had access to their contacts and files. Lo and behold, this person in their contacts actually stored their passwords. So when this company got this information, they actually saw what the passwords were because they're actually listed in the contacts.
What role does password security play in cybersecurity, and what are your recommendations for creating strong passwords?
So I really don't like passwords at all. What you really want these days is a passphrase. That's a long phrase of some sort that would be easy to remember. You can interject a few special characters and such, but something that you don't necessarily have to change often, because length is really your savior, because it takes longer, exponentially longer to crack a password as it gets longer. And having spaces and stuff like a sentence actually helps. So that combined with two-factor authentication really keeps your account secure.
Could you briefly explain what phishing is, and how can people recognize and protect themselves from these types of attacks?
These days, the good hackers are really good at what they do. Very difficult to see any issues. You still get the emails from another country where certainly not the person that they said they are. So, looking at that email and understanding what you're seeing and hovering over links to see where the links actually go. But even if it's from a person you know and from their account, depending on the content, you may want to check and verify that that's the person that actually sent you the email. And what you want to do is call a known number, not the one that's in the email, because That's part of the trick. But to call a known good number for that person and verify if this is really from them or not.
In terms of software updates, why are they important for cybersecurity, and what risks do outdated systems pose?
So software security updates are very important, whether it's Windows, Apple's, Androids, any of those systems are always finding vulnerabilities. As soon as hackers know of a vulnerability, they have their bots, these are machines that are automated, going and searching out the internet for those vulnerabilities so they can take advantage of it.
Can you discuss the importance of secure Wi-Fi connections and the dangers of public Wi-Fi networks?
One of the things you have to look out for Wi-Fi infrastructure is you don't necessarily know if it's secure or not, especially if it's not something that, let's say, your organization put together, that your IT can tell you that, why it's safe. Anything that is open is always suspicious. One of the things you really want to look for, especially for those who travel a lot, is these free hotel systems. Be aware that hackers target hotels to crack into their systems and actually monitor what's going on there. So anything you do, at least make sure you're using a secure VPN that hides your information going over that Wi-Fi network.
What is two-factor authentication, or 2FA, and how does it enhance security measures for online accounts?
So one way to survive with a weak password, which I don't recommend, we recommend the passphrase, is to add two-factor authentication. Basically, it's a third identifier to say that you are who you are by tying it to a device that is just yours, in this case, typically a cell phone.
For business owners, what are the key components of a robust cybersecurity strategy?
The basis for any security plan or process really ties back to the 8 domains of security, which is the basis of the CISSP certification. These are the different areas you need to address to actually accomplish a complete secure system.
How significant is employee training in preventing cyber attacks in a corporate environment?
Unfortunately, it seems that most people, this is kind of the last thing they actually implement, and it's probably the most important, because even with all the layers of protection, things can still slip through. And that end user who's looking at the email or looking at the links needs to understand how to make sure things are trusted. And again, it's always, trust what you see, but verify before actually moving forward.
Could you explain what a VPN is and how it contributes to online privacy and security?
So a VPN in itself isn't necessarily secure. It has to be an encrypted VPN. So the VPN is the tunnel that gets you to where you're trying to connect to, let's say your main headquarters. And then within that tunnel, there's what we call a second phase of encryption, which actually encrypts that data going through that tunnel to the other side. So no one can actually see what's being transmitted.
With the rise of IoT devices, what cybersecurity considerations should users be aware of?
Well, not to be a total alarmist in this, but given some of the countries that most of this equipment is actually manufactured in, you have to look out for the possibility of backdoors. These could be even, famously known devices like, Ring and Blink and all these other devices that can control things. Because what these are is those little smart plugs are actually a little Linux computer that can be controlled, right? And if you don't maybe set these up on a separate network or limit their access to communicate outside your organization, they can be actually used to infiltrate machines and send information out to nefarious people.
What are some emerging cybersecurity threats that individuals and businesses should prepare for in the near future?
AI might be one of the bigger things coming up, because it's getting to the point where it can automate this type of hacking, even to the point of making a phone call and talking to the person, which is a little scary. So it's a phishing attempt can be a hybrid attack. So you get an email, you get a follow-up phone call, you could even get a visit from someone, all to try to make you feeling more secure with that person, to divulge what it is they're looking for, even though they're not legit. But AI just automates that process where you can get bombarded and harassed, and you just want them to shut up, and you give them the information, and then all of a sudden we got a problem. So AI is a bit of a concern.
Can you explain how data breaches occur and what steps should a company take if they experience one?
These days you really need to, number one, probably assume you've been breached, because if you haven't actually done an audit, you might not know. But in that case, you really need to plan now for what that event would be and how you're going to handle it. There's actually companies out there that typically they'll do an audit also, see if there's anything going on. If there's not, prep you with a plan for how you're going to communicate with the outside world and your clients, which you do have to do in case there is a breach.
Can you share some resources or tips for listeners who want to learn more about protecting themselves online?
Probably the most important thing is to hire a company to actually audit your environment and look for issues, right? You don't know until you have a baseline. As far as resources, there's a lot out there. Getting someone in your organization certified, at least in some security program, is a great start. There are different ways of doing that through colleges and some of the certifications like ICS². There's also information out there that you can get from state and local governments, even federal governments, on the process you would take to actually become secure and do your due care and due diligence.